What happens when those sworn to uphold justice become the very ones who destroy it? Today, we're diving into the dark world of judicial corruption that shook America to its core. By the end of this video, I'll reveal how one judge's shocking actions led to a complete overhaul of an entire state's judicial system. Proof that sometimes greatest threats to justice come from within the system itself. The judicial system is meant to be the backbone of American democracy. We trust judges to be impartial arbiters of the law, to protect the innocent, and to ensure justice is served. But what happens when those entrusted with this immense power abuse it? Today, we're counting down the top 10 most corrupt judges in American history. These aren't just stories of minor ethical lapses. These are shocking cases of judges who betrayed the public trust through bribery, abuse of power, and outright corruption. Ulysses Judge 10, Judge Dennis P. McCannney. At number 10, we have Judge Dennis P. McCannney, whose case illustrates how unchecked judicial power can devastate ordinary citizens' lives. McCannney made headlines when he jailed a man who couldn't pay a simple littering fine. Rather than considering the defendant's financial situation, McCannney wielded his judicial authority like a hammer, sending a clear message that compassion had no place in his courtroom. This case sparked outrage among civil rights advocates and led to increased scrutiny of judicial practices across the country, especially in cases involving minor offenses and economically disadvantaged defendants. Judge 9, Judge Paul Hawks. Coming in at number 9 is Florida's Judge Paul Hawks, whose corruption took a uniquely extravagant form. Hawks became notorious for misusing public funds to build what critics dubbed the Taj Mahal Courthouse, a lavish building that cost taxpayers $48 million during severe budget cuts elsewhere. The courthouse featured private bathrooms with granite countertops, miles of African mahogany, and customized artwork, all while other state courts struggled with basic operational needs. The scandal eventually forced Hawks to resign from his position on the First District Court of Appeal. Judge 8, Judge Joan Melvin. Number 8 is Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice Joan Melvin, who was convicted of theft of services and misuse of government property in 2013. Justice Melvin used her judicial staff and resources to run her political campaign for the state Supreme Court. What makes her case particularly noteworthy is her unusual sentence. She was ordered to write handwritten apologies to every judge in Pennsylvania and pose for a photograph holding a sign that read, "I have broken the law." This unique punishment highlighted how even those at the highest levels of our judicial system are not above accountability. Judge 7, Judge James D. Hyperlow. At number 7, we have Illinois Supreme Court Justice James D. Hyperlow, whose corruption centered on leveraging his position to place himself above the law. Justice Hyperlow was censured after repeatedly using his judicial position to avoid traffic citations. When stopped by police officers, he would flash his Supreme Court identification and ask, "Do you know who I am?" This blatant attempt to intimidate law enforcement showed profound disrespect for the very legal system he was sworn to uphold. Judge 6, Judge Marvin Wiggins. Number 6 is Alabama Circuit Judge Marvin Wiggins, who created a firestorm of controversy when he offered defendants with unpaid fines a disturbing choice: donate blood or go to jail. During a 2015 court session coinciding with a courthouse blood drive, Wiggins told defendants they could get $100 credit toward their court debts by donating blood. This extraordinary abuse of power effectively created a modern-day blood for freedom system that violated judicial ethics on multiple levels. Judge 5, Judge Rudy Delgado. At the halfway point, number 5 is Texas Judge Rudy Delgado, who was convicted of bribery and obstruction of justice after accepting payments in exchange for favorable rulings on criminal cases. For years, Delgado took cash bribes from attorneys, allowing their clients to receive favorable treatment in his courtroom. When he realized he was under investigation, he attempted to cover his tracks by returning a bribe and claiming it was a campaign contribution. In 2019, Delgado was sentenced to 48 months in federal prison. Judge 4, Judge Richard A. Bamgartner. Number 4 is former Knox County Criminal Court Judge Richard Bamgartner, whose personal demons led to a scandal that overturned numerous criminal convictions. While presiding over Tennessee's most serious criminal cases, Judge Bamgartner was secretly struggling with prescription drug addiction. He bought pills illegally from defendants in his own court and carried on an inappropriate relationship with a woman in his drug court program who supplied him with pills. After his conduct came to light, dozens of convictions from his court had to be re-examined or overturned entirely. Families who thought they had found justice were forced to endure new trials, reopening deep emotional wounds. Judge 3, Judge Walter L. Nixon Jr. At number 3, we have U.S. District Judge Walter L. Nixon Jr., whose case is remarkable for being one of the few times in American history that a federal judge was removed through impeachment. Judge Nixon's corruption centered around using his position to influence a case involving his business partner's son. When investigated, Nixon compounded his misconduct by lying to a federal grand jury about his involvement. In 1989, the U.S. Senate convicted Nixon on impeachment charges and removed him from office. He also served 5 years in federal prison for perjury. His case reached the U.S. Supreme Court and established important precedent regarding judicial impeachment. Judge 2, Judge Thomas J. Maloney. In second place is Cook County, Illinois Judge Thomas J. Maloney, whose corruption reached truly shocking levels. Maloney wasn't just taking bribes, he was fixing trials in some of the most serious cases to come before his court. As part of the infamous Operation Greylord investigation, federal authorities discovered that Judge Maloney had been accepting bribes to acquit defendants in serious felony cases. In a particularly twisted scheme, Maloney would sometimes accept bribes and then double-cross the defendants by convicting them anyway to avoid suspicion. Maloney was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His case led to numerous convictions being overturned, including death penalty cases. And now, we've reached number 1, the judge whose actions were so egregious that they led to a complete overhaul of Pennsylvania's juvenile justice system. Former Luzerne County Judge Mark Chavarella became infamous for what is now known as the Kids for Cash scandal. In one of the most heartbreaking judicial corruption cases in American history, Chavarella received millions in kickbacks for sending juvenile defendants to private detention facilities. For years, children as young as 10 years old appeared before Chavarella for minor offenses like mocking a principal on MySpace, trespassing in an abandoned building, or shoplifting DVDs. Most appeared without lawyers. In assembly line hearings lasting only minutes, Chavarella sentenced thousands of these children to juvenile detention. Why? Because he and another judge had received $2.8 million from the developers of private juvenile detention centers. Every child sent away meant more profit. The human cost was devastating. Children with no prior records were torn from their families. Some spent years in detention for trivial offenses. Some developed psychological issues, and tragically, at least one committed self-harm after the experience. When the scheme was finally exposed, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court took the extraordinary step of vacating thousands of Chavarella's juvenile convictions. He was ultimately sentenced to 28 years in federal prison. Conclusion. As I promised at the beginning of this video, Judge Chiavarella's case led to a complete overhaul of Pennsylvania's juvenile justice system. New protections were established to ensure children have proper legal representation. Limitations were placed on sending juveniles to detention facilities, and vastly improved oversight mechanisms were created. These 10 judges represent the antithesis of what the judicial system should stand for. Their stories serve as powerful reminders of what happens when those entrusted with upholding justice become its greatest threats. But there's a silver lining to these dark clouds. In many of these cases, the exposure of corruption led to meaningful reforms and improvements in our legal system. Public outrage translated into action, proving that while individual judges may fail us, the pursuit of justice continues. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content about legal history and the justice system. Drop a comment letting me know which of these cases shocked you the most, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated on future videos. Thanks for watching.